Welcome to another episode of the Bank Free Blueprint Podcast. Today I have with me Chris Peterson. Chris has been involved in real estate for 19 years now. He works with rental cash flow properties, turnkey types of properties, creative financing. Chris is a speaker, a professional speaker, international speaker, speaking on real estate and e-commerce. And Chris, you've been a mentor. First of all, welcome, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Tom, I'm really excited to be here and very humbled that I watch your podcast for you to give me the opportunity to come on is pretty cool for me. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being on. So you have been a mentor for real estate, personal mentor for real estate for the last 5 years. You mentor and you also teach for a couple of different national brands as in real estate. Well, let's go a little further. I just want to finish the introduction here. You were a union carpenter for over 25 years. You've got a great background in construction, that would tell me. The thing I'm anxious to talk about, though, is your new, it's not really that, maybe it's not new for you, but it's what you're doing with your kids, and it's called These Flippin' Kids.
Yes.
Would you mind just sharing a little bit? I know you're having an open house with a home that your kids just did now. And from what I understand, it's Brianna, who's 15, Madeline, who's 14, and Isabel, who's 12. So
yes,
pretty cool to have that happening.
Very cool.
Maybe describe that a little bit.
Yeah. So very cool project. So this all started earlier this year, probably in about April. Mm-hmm. And I had invited my kids. We were living in Florida at the time. And so I just invited my daughters to come hang out with me for a few days. I was teaching in Miami. So I said, let's just go to Miami and just hang out with Dad. And so I had them sit in the ballroom while I was teaching adults real estate. And so they were taking notes. They were paying attention. So at the end of the my event, my kids came to me and they said, they literally just called me out. They're like, Dad, you've been saying for the last 3 days that anybody can do real estate, no money, no credit. If they really have the desire, can they do this? And they said, we also know that you're paid to sell. So you're up there, you're presenting. Is this just a sales pitch or is this reality?
That's great.
So, yeah. And so I told him, I said, no, I truly believe that anybody can do this as long as you have the desire and the willingness to go through a process. There is a process that is required. Mm-hmm. If you're willing to go through that, anybody can do this. And so they said, can we do this? And I really didn't know how to respond to that. You know, I said, yes, you can do this. However, I didn't know how to do this. Mm-hmm. So I started talking to my wife. My wife works in real estate as well. She works for a company out of Arizona and oversees their company. And they teach purchasing of land and has a mentoring program. And so my wife and I started talking as like, if we're going to actually do this project with the children, how can we do this to set them up? And so we started kind of visiting with them, definitely saw them wanting to do this. And then we realized very quickly that in order for this project to work, we should create separation. Mm. We needed to bring somebody on that if this was just 3 kids that lived down the street and they didn't have a mom and dad working in the business, how would these 3 kids actually go through a process of actually learning how to do real estate? Mm. And so my wife and I, because I've been a mentor. My wife ran a mentoring program. She still runs a mentoring program. We started kind of running through a list of people that we thought could take our kids through this process. Well, as we started running through our list, we had a relationship with Alex Arriaga, who you know very well.
Yeah. So Alex is my business partner in Kensington Fund for anybody listening. Yeah. So this is super guy. You lucked out when you had the chance to talk with him.
Yeah. So so I reached out to Alex, and I shared with him kind of what our thoughts were, and I wanted him to kind of digest, because I knew none of us had ever mentored kids before. None of us had ever taken on a task like this. And so in order to actually teach the kids not only the real estate element, but also some life leadership that they're going to need as they move forward in life, who would be the best person for that? And obviously, Alex is a very dynamic individual, and he's very fun. And so he understands the importance of working hard, but he also understands the importance of rewarding yourself and playing hard. And so when I shared this with Alex, he was completely blown away and humbled that Jenny and I had asked him to come on board, and he was more than willing. So he's been guiding the kids through this process. They've been meeting once a week, and we've been gathering all this content and just gauging them through this. And today they're doing an open house. They've done a complete flip. They purchased, they brought contractors on board. They found their own money. They've real estate agents, design, the entire project. They have coordinated and just operated as an investor using other people's money, other people's time to get them to an open house today. They got a phenomenal property. It is really nice.
That is great. And it's basically a single family home.
It is
a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom?
It's a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath, 2.5 car garage, approximately 1,900 square feet, fenced in yard. It's a tri-level home. So the home is located in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And the kids, I thought this was genius of the children. When the kids decided that they wanted to do this, they said, Dad, anybody can flip a house in California. Anybody could flip a house in Florida or Arizona. Who's doing what we want to do in just the good old fashioned Midwest? So we relocated. We moved our family and brought them to Fort Wayne. They selected this area. They wanted to come be near grandma and grandpa and kind of finish out their schooling in the Midwest. And so we came here. And so this particular home it's an older tri-level home. It was very boxy. And so they've done some major design. They've taken out some walls, some structure changes, had to incorporate engineers along the way to help them with the design, and they've done a phenomenal job. Yeah.
So how long ago did they start out on it? And what was the process for them to look when they were looking for homes? How did Alex take them through the process and the timing, the amount of work, and to get to this point today, where actually this afternoon is the first open house on the property?
So we started in just kind of, Alex kind of profiled them. Where are they? What are their skill sets? What were they most interested in? And then how could we bring the three of them, because they're 3 completely different personalities. One's very analytical, one is more just kind of free spirit, and then the other one is a very creative.
I just have to say, it was really, it was pretty amazing seeing them on stage in Palm Springs in front of what was it, 300-400 people.
800.
And, Alex had them. How many people?
800.
Wow, that was wow. And so just watching them up there in front and being interviewed by Shanda, and just so you could tell the differences in personalities, but man, they did a great job on that as well.
Yeah, and that's been part of that. So what we've done and what Alex and I do as mentors, when we're dealing with adults, we can give a lot of content in a very short amount of time, and an adult can absorb that. So we needed to actually take the content and make it palatable that these kids could digest this. And so we had to break it down into bite size. So the learning process was a little bit slower for them than it would have been if I was dealing with, say, somebody like you. So we had to kind of break it down. And then we started witnessing and watching how, when we got into some technical elements where my analytical child, this was her wheelhouse. She loved that. The other 2 started to kind of drift off. And so we needed to mix up the actual training, and Alex and I had talked, and Alex had a course of action. And so it was, okay, well, they need some dessert. So we need to do some fun things here. So there's things that they can still learn in real estate, but we need to move away from a technical element and bring it back in, so we're not just pounding them with a lot of content all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And so that made the process. So they started in April having meetings with Alex, just kind of getting to know him. May, they officially started in focused on, let's find real estate, let's go through the process. In 4 weeks, 4 one-hour phone calls, they had their money secured, they had identified and segmented a market, located a property, and had an offer placed. And so within a 4-week time period.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Now, Alex lives in Puerto Rico and San Diego.
That's correct.
Combination, and so he flew out several times, from what I understand. And but also the remote mentoring. That did you find that how did the kids work with? How did that work out for everyone?
For the children, it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So because the millennials and our younger generation are so in tune with technology,
mm-hmm.
it actually became a pretty easy path for them, because they didn't necessarily need so much hands-on. There was a time when they needed that, but they were very comfortable actually being given a task to have to go do research and look and actually use technology as a way to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were able to incorporate that as well. And that was a very powerful message. And that's a powerful message for adults, because my children were being mentored from somebody splitting his time from San Diego, Puerto Rico on vacations. There was a call from Barbados. And so Alex, with his schedule traveling around, we were able to incorporate the technology and not see any kind of drop off with the amount of information that was being given. And so it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I the idea of mixing it up with the technical, and then as you call it, sort of the dessert part of the of the project, being able to do that, and just like you mentioned, Alex's ability to be as dynamic as he is. It seems like that combination is what kept the motivation up, kept the interest up, kept everybody rolling on the project. And
so that was where Jenny and I really felt like Alex was the perfect fit, because we've always kind of approached this as well. Mm-hmm. You can have a template, and templates are critical. We need to have structure, but yet every single project is almost its own brand new project. And mm-hmm. so although you might walk in with a template, sometimes there's some custom building along the way. And so with Alex, we had discussed this, and it's like, we're going to need to custom build as we go, because we're dealing with something that none of us were really too familiar with on how to actually incorporate and keep the kids focused, excited, motivated, and yet still constantly working and focused on their business.
Yeah. And so, and just curious on the budget and the timing. How did it all come together? Were they able to be pretty much on track?
They are. They've had some help. Mm-hmm. So I'm not gonna deny that they didn't have some help along the way. They have a company who my wife's family is. Some of her cousins own a plumbing supply company in Muncie, Indiana, Knapp Supply. Mm-hmm. We knew we were going to, we had a kitchen in there that actually had custom cabinets in it, but it was very boxy, very closed, very dark. Those could have been painted, but that wasn't what the kids wanted to do. They wanted to do more of an open concept and redesign the property. So we reached out to Knapp Supply and asked them if they would come on board with this project, if they would just believe in the kids. And so they were more than willing to actually step up. They've really helped a lot. They helped with a lot of costs, and that helped greatly reduce some of their overall. So they've been operating within their budget. Mm-hmm. We've had to ask our contractor to kind of peel back a little bit, be flexible on this, because this is one project of many projects that will move forward. So rather than just focus on what the overall profit would be, let's focus on the actual business model and the process. The children, everybody will make money moving forward. but let's make this a very smooth transition for them out of the first one. Let's get them a hit. Let's get them a victory. And let's take them through the process.
But that's really true, whether it's with your kids or anybody. When we're working, building a team, getting started,
Yes,
the ability to lean on other people to help out a bit when needed, the ability to collaborate, to work together, to work as a team, to build a strong team.
yes,
And with the intention of moving forward, continuing on to even bigger and better projects. That's exactly how good business works in the real world anyway. So that's.
Yeah. And for their business model, it was very good because they didn't come from a construction background. They didn't come from finance. They're kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so they knew very early, number one, they were going to need the money. We said, my wife and I said, we're not putting the money up for this. If you were 3 kids, you have to find a project, you have to put together a proposal, and you have to present. Mm-hmm. And so these are critical elements that must be done by anybody wanting to do this. So if you have a good project, you'll find the money, and it's the matter of actually doing that. So we took them through. So it was not only understanding the importance of using other people's money, they were going to need other people's time and resources and expertise to be able to just trust them. And Tom, that was probably one of the biggest things I've noticed, and Alex and I have talked about dealing with children over versus dealing with adults, is the children were not coming from any kind of elements or evidence of fear. They hadn't created enough events in their life to say, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
I heard that's bad. I had a cousin that tried real estate. It didn't turn out. And so they weren't bringing any of that in. Everything they were bringing in was, okay, so if the plumbing's bad, we just need to incorporate a plumber.
Yeah.
And so that was very important through this as well.
Yeah, that great lessons that are learned early on, that, like you say, they aren't tainted by other people's not so good experiences.
That's correct.
Now the fact that you separated yourself, you sort of stepped aside in that process. I think that was I really like that idea, because it separates you as a how do I say it? A parent from a business partner, right? At that age.
Yeah.
How did that work for you? I mean, has it been a good experience? Would you do anything different if you were to do it this first one again?
No, I honestly, I would not. What I've done is my wife and I have been able to actually sit back and watch this process and be able to take on a different vantage point than being she and I as investors going through the steps. But with the kids, I mean, I've heard Alex actually even just make little tiny comments that they've heard mom and dad, challenge them on. Mm-hmm. And when they hear that message from mom and dad, it's like, oh, mom and dad's getting on us again, and we need to clean our room or whatever. Mm-hmm. Where Alex could present that coming from a higher level, being the mentor, being somebody that they place at a higher level. Mm-hmm. Not that we're not higher levels, but the messenger was different with the message, that when they heard it from Alex, it's like, okay, our mentor said we need to do this. And so we just follow the path.
Yeah.
And so for us as parents, it's been great just watching them go through this and just assuming the role as mom and dad, being cheerleaders and supporting. Obviously, we've answered questions along the way. They've mm-hmm. had some things that Alex has given them some challenges. We've kind of guided them through. But then we've always said, okay, you need to talk to your mentor about that. That's the importance of having that individual.
Right.
Yeah.
So you, through this process, there's been some Facebook Lives. There's even been, I know there was a local TV station that had visited the property maybe about a month ago, if I remember right. And then was it 3 or 4 days ago, they actually had one of the national affiliates. Was it CBS or which one was it?
It was ABC came out. We've had CBS come out. So they're local stations. So we had the first one, we invited them out when the kids first took possession of the property. And the kids decided that they wanted to take a wall down. They wanted to do a structure change in the property. So Alex was able to frame that in an area of talking about taking walls down in our life. What are some of the walls that you're facing? Maybe objections or fear or evidence. Well, for the kids, really the only wall that they had faced had been the fact that they were children. So not every investor that they talked to when they made their presentations with their proposals, although they loved the project, they loved the business model, they were uncomfortable working with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so the kids came to me. Okay, Dad, this investor won't talk to us. What do we do? I said, scratch his name off, be very polite, thank him for their time, call the next individual. So continue to go through a process. And so they were able to actually find an individual who believed in them, same as the contractor and everybody else that's been incorporated. So the news came out, and so we had a tearing down the wall ceremony. We had 20 kids out there from ages 4 to 18 with hammers, actually taking down walls and use that as a symbol. And then through the process, the local newspaper here in Fort Wayne wanted to actually feature them. So they came out, started interviewing them 3-4 times, and then put a nice story together, put them on the front page. And then another producer from another television station actually saw the newspaper article. So they wanted to pick the piece up. And so they contacted the school. How do we find these kids? How do we find this family? And so the school helped connect the dots with that. So they were just out 2 days ago, and then they have indicated they want to follow the kids even through their next project. So they want to continue it's a great community story.
Nice. Nice. Now, you mentioned something about their age and about them feeling like some investors had a harder time taking them serious. But I think that that's a great point, because with the mentoring that I've done, I've had a lot of people that I've mentored, and some of the younger ones are really conscious about, well, am I going to be taken serious? I'm only 20 years old, or I'm only 19 or 22, whatever. So this is a great example of how an 11, a 13, and a 15-year-old can make it happen. And so,
absolutely.
So it's really a mindset where we're at. What we believe we can do is what we get done. And so I think that's a pretty important lesson for that they learned, and that we can all learn from. So
one of the biggest things is, I think, as mentors in this industry, is, are you going to allow that no to stop you? And maybe that's not a permanent no, maybe that's just a not now, but are you going to allow that no to be the one that keeps you from actually moving forward? Or are you passionate enough about the actual process and moving on and making it happen? We can make it happen. And so the kids got to experience that. They got to experience a no very early. And so, but they had enough desire to push through. They were not going to allow that no to keep them from actually moving on.
Yeah.
And that's a great message for you and I as adults.
Yeah. And what is it? I'll paraphrase this, but if you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right.
You're right. Yes.
So whichever way you think is it's right. So
yeah.
So now that they're hopefully they'll get an offer or two maybe even today, but this week, whenever that happens, when the first project is done, what do you see, or what do they see as a vision? Where do they want to go? Are they going to do another one? Do they want to expand? Who knows? What do you know what their plans are?
Yeah. Alex actually flew in to meet with the television people and actually go through. We were staging this week prior to the open house. So Alex flew back from San Diego to actually visit with the kids. And we spent one whole day actually out looking at properties. So they've identified a property right now. They will be placing an offer. They can't place an offer on that property till Thursday. So they're going to be placing an offer, and they've already got the contractor estimates and everything for this particular project. So they want to move forward. So with the money they're going to make off of this project. My oldest daughter, Brianna, is from Haiti. She was born in Haiti, and my wife and I adopted her. And Brianna had malaria 3 times before we were able to bring her home from Haiti. And so my wife and I sent money to Haiti to help actually buy the medicine to treat Brianna. And the kids decided through Alex and talking about the importance of actually giving back and not just being focused on what you can do, but let's make an impact in other people. The kids actually chose that as a charity and something that they want to buy into and move forward. So they're taking part of their profits and they're going to actually send that money to Haiti and to buy medicine for malaria for other children that may not be as fortunate to have somebody to actually send money down. And then the rest of the money will basically be put into a trust. And as that trust continues to grow, they want to start to leverage some of their own money to do future deals.
Great.
So they see this as a business model. They are excited and ready to move on to the next one. They want to get this one sold and go right on. So
yeah. And with the financing they did, that it was sort of it was very collaborative. It was almost like a joint venture structure.
It was.
If I'm correct on that, and
yes.
where it was almost like the investor puts money in and I always talk about passive investor, active investor. So
right.
The passive investor being the one with the money, they put the money into the project. The active investors, which were your daughters in this case, they did all the work. They did
That's correct.
The project together, and in the end, there's a profit share on that model. And I think
that's correct.
I think that's a great way to get started. Now, your daughters could have said, well, no, we really want to get all the profits ourselves. Well, they may not have been able to get the job done if that had been the case. And so that's where having the abundance mindset where everybody can get compensated for what they bring, a joint venture like this, where everybody is covered, it really can work out well. So
it was a very important piece for them, because they did not have liquid. So they had an investor who said, okay, I will do this deal. Here is the interest rate. Here is the percentage of the fees. But there was an element of them having to make payments along the way. So they felt like they had asked my wife and I, could you help us with those payments if they chose that route? And we said, if that's what it takes to actually do this. But then they had another investor that says, I won't require you to make any payments. I will just take an equity share. So you're not going to assume any risk as far as having to figure out, they're kids. They just didn't have money. So they chose to actually give away, and it's not give away. They got half a pie when they otherwise would not have had any pie.
Yeah.
For them, it made perfect sense to say, okay, we're going to be the active investors in this. We're going to do all the work. The individual that wrote a check will receive a bigger check. And they didn't have the burden along the way to actually be able to absorb some of those costs.
Yeah. And which I think is a great model, a great way to do it, because it reduces risk. It reduces the load on the property on the project of having to make the monthly payments. And yet it's very fair, very equitable for everybody involved. So that's really that's a great way to do it. Now the business that you are in, you do the teaching, the mentoring, the speaking in front of big groups, but you also do turnkey property. And can you describe for our audience how would you define turnkey investments?
Well, for turnkey investments, what we see is myself, I am an active investor. So as far as I want to be involved, I come from a strong construction background. I still enjoy the creativity. I like the working with the crews. I like overseeing that process. So I like to be very hands-on. A lot of individuals, maybe they come from a background, maybe it was a dental hygienist, it could have been maybe a school teacher, an engineer. Maybe their comfort level is really not at that being so active, but they have some liquidity. They understand the importance of incorporating real estate into their portfolios. So it becomes kind of a perfect storm for me. I get to do what I like to do, and that's to go through the process of overseeing projects and take them to the actual completion. And what we're doing is, so we'll locate a property, we'll go through the actual renovation phase, and we will take this property, and then we're going to be selling them off as a complete turnkey cash flow property for somebody who may just want to be passive. They're looking to move money out of a self-directed IRA or 401k or however. So they want to use some of their liquid to actually move it over into real estate, but they don't want to go through that actual renovation process of dealing with contractors and things of that nature. So we're assisting individuals in that, but and we're also connecting the dots for the property management. They don't really want to be landlords either. And so we're creating this system where they can just park their money and they're going to get a rate of return on that, protected through a real estate process. Yeah.
Okay. And so the difference between this and the turnkey and let's say a fix and flip or purchase and renovation, however you want to describe it, and somebody comes in and they decide to buy it as a rental property. The difference here is that a lot of times in turnkey, the investors will get involved at a much earlier stage, and they'll work with someone like you where you help bring it all together, the construction, the project management, everything is, so it's really more or less hands off, meaning, and that's where the term turnkey comes from. All they need to do is come in and turn the key and it's all ready to go. The renter is in, the management is happening, the work has been done, all of that has been completed. So
that's correct. Yes. And so one, it allows me to do exactly what I enjoy doing the most, and that's being active. But yet it also gives that individual a place just to park their money, and they can become a passive investor and not have to worry about this. And they're going to get a much higher rate of return than they are leaving it in an IRA or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, and so we're literally handing the keys over. Now, our target market, Tom, is we're targeting more of the Midwest, because the Midwest, obviously, we don't see great appreciation spikes, but we don't see great appreciation drops. So it's a very stable market. Home prices are much more moderate. It's more working class. And so we're not dealing with expensive, really high-end homes where it's very challenging to try to cash flow. But we're also staying out of that very low, those very troubled areas, because as a passive investor, you still have to create an element of safety for them. They don't want to be thinking, well, I've got a house in a very challenging neighborhood where I'm dealing with things involved. So we're targeting that sweet spot. Yeah. We want to make sure that they can cash flow on this particular piece of real estate, but should they decide 2 years, maybe after taking advantage of some capital gains and things of this nature, maybe they decide they want to be able to sell that home. So we want to make sure that we're staying in that area where they can hit the largest pool of potential buyers, whether be it through lease option or to try to sell this at a retail area and still be able to actually cash out and move on. So it's very precise in the acquisition of how we actually do this.
Yeah. So you're hitting the market where there's more or less the most people in the market, where it's a lot of people, which is again maybe the bread and butter type of clientele or market or rental pool, I guess. If you were to look back and before you got into doing your first turnkey or one of your first projects, what is something that you wish you had known early on when you started out investing that you could share with any of our listeners if they're getting started, whether it's turnkey or if they're going to do their own fix and flip? So either active or passive, any of those. Is there any bit of advice that you might share that could help any of our listeners maybe not make the same mistake or see from a certain perspective?
Get out of your way. Get out of your own way. I came from a construction background, so there was an element of just trying to control everything. So it was a matter of just with the business model of my kids, understanding the importance of incorporating other crafts, other tradesmen, other real estate agents or whatever, bringing that team together And just releasing that and not feeling like you have to oversee everything and every element of this, and find your lanes and stay in your lanes.
Yeah.
But the mentoring, I didn't necessarily have the great mentoring. I come from a very small community, so I was very limited in my resources when we started. So a lot of that I just had to rely on what did I know from a construction background to make this happen. So obviously, I made mistakes, but I learned from those mistakes. But the mentoring, I can't emphasize mentoring enough. You need to incorporate the right mentor.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mentors out there, but when you're looking at a mentor, you need to incorporate a mentor who's not just going to take you through the process, but it's going to invest time in you. And to know how you personally are going to do this. What are your goals? What are the challenges in your life? And then to fit that actual business model so it works for you. And that's accomplished through fulfillment. So oftentimes you can give the information, but the fulfillment may drop off. And so I wish I would have had or incorporated mentors in the first few years of doing this, rather than just trying to muddle through the process.
Yeah. And would you include in that feeling like you needed to do everything yourself, rather than having a good team that you bring on, even if you need to share in some of the upside?
Yeah. And I did everything myself. So I not only got up each morning and went to work and worked all day. I came home from that job and I was the guy that was putting in the kitchens. I was the guy installing the bathrooms. I was putting windows in. I was painting at midnight, and Saturday and Sunday. I was so consumed thinking that I was saving money because I was doing the work, and I was taking pride in my work, saying, look at what I've done. This is something I did this all myself. And it wasn't until I brought my first mentor on that says, you've done great work. However, this project could have been done in 3 months. It took you 6 months to actually go through the process. And so understanding the math at that point and how to actually see that I needed to get out of the way and actually start releasing this to, and it was like, well, you run construction jobs for other companies as a carpenter. You're on very big projects. You have all the crafts out there. You know the importance of having all the trades out there, but yet you're coming home and you're doing everything by yourself. And it was only because I didn't understand the math and how to actually just bring those people on.
Yeah, and so it's a form of leverage. And when you think about it, it's what is a lost opportunity cost? Because
that's right.
What other projects, not only projects, but what other projects could you have probably done if you had leveraged other people, where you do what you're really good at, they do what they're really good at. But what other opportunities, even with family or with having a lifestyle where you do get some time off, that ability to leverage and to delegate in a project or in business, anything in life. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense, because if I'm really good at one thing but not so good at something else, why don't I stay working on what I'm really good at and let somebody else fill in the gap where I may not be as efficient? Because then everybody grows, everybody does better, because not only is it leveraging up for maybe more things to do, getting more things done, but it also leverages up from a safety perspective of if I stick with what I know it's going to be done right. If I let somebody else do some of the other things that they are really good at, it increases the efficiencies, the profits, the safety, all of those things. So,
well, and through my experience, where I found myself is I tried from the very beginning to separate myself from every other person who was doing renovations, holding rental properties. So I said, okay, if I'm going to go into a challenging neighborhood and I'm going to invest in maybe an area that may be more of a challenge for some people or an uncomfortable level to dealing with some neighborhoods, I'm comfortable going there because I'm from there. Okay. So I grew up in I didn't grow up around money.
Mhm.
So I didn't understand that. So I wasn't coming from a point of judgment, and I was able to understand that there's people in that area that, let's invest in their life. So I
Mhm.
had a stomach for some troubled areas, and I still do today.
Mhm.
But and so although my work was very good and I'd separated myself, I was creating a nicer product. So people wanted to move into my properties before moving into somebody else's properties. But I wasn't scalable
Mhm.
because I wasn't able to scale the project because I was so rigid and seeing that everything was going to be done by me.
Yeah.
And until I actually brought a mentor on and actually taught me the power of leveraging other people,
Mhm.
then we were able to scale.
Yeah.
And that was the game changer for me.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, we're just about out of time here, but I do want to ask if you had a resource or a book or something that you could recommend to our audience that would either help them out in business, help them out in their personal life, whatever it might be. What do you have anything that comes to mind that you would recommend that has been powerful for you?
Well, there's the greatest book, in my opinion, to ever be put on pages for investors is Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Mm,
Robert Kiyosaki. And maybe some of that actually hit home for me because I didn't have a rich dad in my life at that time. I definitely come from a poor dad, go to school, work hard, do all these things, but just understanding how to just change your mindset.
mhm.
And so it wasn't until actually, in Napoleon Hill, and some of these authors, until I started bringing in that information, um, I struggled. Now I'm a student of the Bible.
Mhm.
And so I've always gravitated. I grew up in that environment. So I gravitate towards that kind of mindset type
Mhm.
stuff for me personally with the leadership and investing in people and understanding that. So those are critical tools for me and
Mhm.
being game changers. Uh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So Rich Dad would be one of the top.
And I had the blessing of being able to work for his company.
Mm,
And so I started speaking for them. I started being a trainer. I was a mentor, was
mhm.
teaching webinars. So they believed in me as well. And
Wow.
so for me to be able to work for somebody who I idolized, and yet they believed in me enough to actually help me grow and to stretch me and to push me out, was very, very very
Yeah.
humbling for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, good. If anybody would like to reach out to you, maybe they have questions, maybe they want
Yeah.
to get updates on how your kids' projects are doing. First of all,
Yeah.
the name of the sort of the project that Alex and your kids are working on is called These Flippin' Kids, and
Yeah.
flippin' is without a G.
Yes.
And so that's one way people can kind of keep an eye out of what's happening there. But if they wanted to reach out to you, what is that something they could do?
Yeah, absolutely. You can just shoot me an email at Chris Peterson Mentor at gmail.com, and I can answer some questions. I always make myself available to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, the website, I've shifted everything right now over to the kids website. So we got theseflippinkids.tv, and there's a place on there where you can actually ask questions, and then somebody from the team will actually be reaching back.
Nice.
And also, if people have an interest, um, I'm a supplier for list. I get an updated list weekly nationwide, and these are direct bank for sale properties. I'm one of just a handful of people that have access to this list,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a huge savings for individuals actually looking for properties themselves. And I will simply include them into the list.
Mm-hmm.
The list comes to me. I can forward it off. If they find a property on there they want, they can contact me, and then we can deal directly with the banks to help with the negotiation. Keeps them off of a national auction site, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, where they're
Mm-hmm.
just bidding and not knowing what's going on. So there's a way to actually leverage that as well.
Okay. Okay. So if they
Yeah.
want to, if they'd like to see that list or get a hold of it, they just email you as well.
Yeah, they can just email me directly. I'll just put them on my weekly list. And as the updated list gets sent to me, I will just forward it off. And then if they see something they like, they can highlight it, send it back, and then I can help them with that. Nice. And then if somebody has questions with the mentoring, they can contact me or contact Alex. Okay. Alex is a phenomenal mentor as well. And so we would be more than happy to assist in that.
Great. And for anybody who's possibly driving right now, that we will be putting the links to all of these in the show notes. Should be able to reach out there. If anybody has any suggestions for ways that maybe different guests that I would invite, or different things for the show, or ways that we could improve the show, or anything at all, I'd love to hear from you. If you like the show, I even love that as much too. So and one thing that helps is if you do subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, if you do a review on iTunes for the Bank Free Blueprint podcast, that gets word out to more people, or it shows the value, which gets more people to subscribe, which then gets us more guests on the show. And it's all free. It's part of giving back, part of making life easier, making business easier, more profitable for everybody involved. So, I think with that, I think we'll sign off. But Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I wish you and your kids the best of luck on the open house today. Really, I'm looking forward to hearing that is pending or sold here in the next few days. So that'd be really amazing. So.
Yeah, and Tom, thank you so much for taking time to invite me. It's very humbling, and I received that, and I thank you for believing in me and allowing me to actually participate in your program.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Chris. And we'll until next time, we'll sign off. Thank you.
All right.